Okay, so what do we have? What do we have so far? In terms of creating a more positive relationship, in terms of being a benefit creator, we want to focus on the potential. But there's one more thing that we can do, and that is communicating about positive events. This is taken from the work of Shelley Gable from UCLA, who's done, to my mind, the most important work in the area of positive psychology as it relates to relationships. You see, there's a lot of research that has been done on negative communication, meaning what we saw last time. How do you disagree? So rather have a cognitive disagreement rather than an affective or emotional disagreement. Focus on the substance, focus on the behavior rather than on the person, on the emotions. So we know that there is a lot of research in organizational behavior, in couples counseling research, and so on. There has been almost no research done on positive communication between couples, which is in line with most of the research done in psychology. Again, remember the ratio 21-to-1. Now it's a little bit less, but around 20-to-1 ratio, positive to negative research. Same when it comes to relationship, no exception, unfortunately. Here comes Shelley Gable and says, well, we also need to focus on what is working. And she started to study positive communication about positive events. And lo and behold, what she found was quite remarkable. In fact, what she found was that the way couples communicate about positive events is a better predictor of long-term success in relationships than how they communicate about negative events. When things go well, better predictor of long-term thriving, passionate relationship than when things do not go well. So when I come home and tell my partner, oh, I just did this and it was amazing, or I've just seen this and it was breathtaking, or this is what's going on at work, this is what's going on in my personal life, and it's a good thing, how my partner responds predicts our long-term success of the relationship. Specifically, what Gable is talking about is active, constructive responding. What is active, constructive responding? What she does is divide it into a 2x2, and I'm going to present the 2x2 now. This is taken directly from the work of three of my colleagues, Jen Elsner, Barbara Hellman, and Amanda Horn from Australia. And here is what they did. Put Shelley Gable's work into an understandable, clear 2x2. So we have on the one dimension constructive versus destructive communication. On the other dimension, active versus passive communication. Let's go through the 4 boxes using an example. My partner comes home from work and she says, I just got a promotion. The promotion that I've been waiting for so long. I was just told that I got it. How do I respond? Well, if I'm passive and destructive, I show no interest, divert attention, I say, and just move on or talk about, but did you see we got a new flower in the garden? Just talk about something unrelated to it. Divert attention. This is passive and destructive. Now, destructive and active. Just got a promotion. She comes home and my response is, oh no, this means we'll even have less time to spend together. What does this mean about our children now? Or what about our holiday that we were going to go on next month? It's not possible now, is it? Destructive and active. Then there is passive constructive. This is the most common response. Oh, that's great, wonderful. Wow. And then there is the 4th box, the active and constructive, which is you would just That is amazing. Tell me all about it. So what happened? Did the boss call you into his office and tell you how did it happen? Or we have to celebrate. Or let's call our friends and go out. This is amazing. Well done. You've worked so hard for it. I'm so happy for you. Active, constructive. As it turns out, there are consequences, ramifications to each one of these responses. Unfortunately, the active and constructive, not very common. Not very common among partners, especially after the honeymoon phase. So when initially the physiological, the novelty, excitement is there, that happens more often. But after a while, this goes away, and with it, as Shelley Gables has shown, the success of the relationship in the long term. Now, the thing about active constructive responding is that it applies to numerous areas in our lives, not just to romantic relationships. How I communicate with my roommates, how I communicate with my family, parents, children. As a therapist, how I communicate with my clients. Because again, most of what psychology has been about is for the therapist to sit there and to be passive constructive. To smile, wonderful, and then what happened? As opposed to active constructive, and there are consequences. It doesn't mean it's the right approach in every relationship every time, because there are a few constraints here. For example, it has to be win-win events. Let's say my partner comes from work and says, Tal, you won't believe it. I just made the most amazing love with my colleague. He was unbelievable. In fact, I'd never felt this way before. Now, active constructive, do tell more. And what happened then? Very difficult to be actively constructive in this situation for most people, present company included. Very difficult. So it's about win-win. That's not a win-win as far as I can see. It has to be a win-win. In other words, something that both of us, or the relationship, will benefit from, or at the very least, that the other person is not hurt by it. It has to be genuine. It cannot be fake. Because that comes through, especially once the partner knows you. Over time, it just doesn't work. It has to be genuine, meaning we have to get into the role of our partner, identify with, empathize with, be one with, so that we can genuinely respond to it. And if we do genuinely respond to it, and if it is a win-win event, that's when it generates upward spiral on a few levels. First of all, remember, usually when a positive event happens, what happens? There is a spike up, and then effective forecasting, Gilbert's work shows, goes back down again. What effective constructive responding does, which is, okay, tell me more. So how was it? Let's celebrate. Give me more details. I want to know. I'm interested. What it does to that spike is prolong it. It actually keeps it going for much longer than it would have had it just been a positive event and then back to base level. Because we know no matter what promotion we get at work, initially it feels great. No matter what raise, initially it feels wonderful, and then it goes back down again to base level. Active constructive responding actually elongates that raise, that improvement in well-being. So that's one spiral that it creates, feeling better. The second spiral is an interpersonal spiral, meaning a person who actively, constructively responds genuinely enters the same upward spiral. Meaning people who do that genuinely become happier as a result of it because they experience the event. And they themselves benefit and become happier. Again, a win-win potentially. And finally, it also does what positive psychology as a whole does, which is build positive capacity. Remember, positive psychology takes us not just from the zero to the positive, it also helps us better deal with the negative to the zero. Partners who actively, constructively respond to one another are building capacity for hard times. In fact, one of the most interesting researches that were done a long time ago was that couples where things went well, where that language wasn't used, but essentially where they actively, constructively responded to one another and supported one another back in the 1920s. Once the Great Depression hit, the relationship actually became better. Whereas partners who didn't have it good before, the relationship very often dissolved, became worse. In other words, when they built the capacity, it helped them also deal with hard times, such as 1929 and the 1930s. There are no shortcuts when it comes to good relationships, to healthy relationships. It is hard work if you want to succeed, just like it is in every other domain in life. There are no shortcuts. However, that doesn't mean that the hard work cannot be enjoyable, cannot be pleasurable, as well as meaningful. And when that hard work is pleasurable and meaningful, over time, that leads to a happier relationship, happier individuals, to a win-win togetherness.